Hello and welcome to Hobby Vlog number 133, I think. Not sure. Anyway, if I'm wrong, you can all laugh at me. This week's been very busy with work, but I've managed to just keep ticking over with the hobbying, and that's pretty much what the theme is, just ticking over, pushing forwards on some projects and trying to enjoy it rather than feeling stressed. So yeah, this is what the hobby is all about. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I would love to hear from you. I always do reply to every single comment, so don't be shy, and I really hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you again at the end. So I'm going to do this a little bit out of order. Normally I wouldn't be painting the river quite yet, but because I'm going to be sitting this over the top, and I want to also paint underneath and inside underneath the wheel, I'm going to do it now. So what I've got is three colours. I've got a dark green, a light green. I don't actually need that much, so the amount that normally plops out of this is going to be too much, so I'll just encourage a little bit out. So there's the dark green, there's the light green, give that a shake actually. And get an amount of that out. Not too much, there we are, that's probably a bit too much. Never mind. And then a little bit of blue. And what I do to do this, and I've done this many times on the channel before, this is where the blue won't open. Ah, there we are, good. I need to keep my pots cleaner. Yeah, so I've done this before a few times on the channel, but I do wet blending for this technique, so I'll show you it briefly and then finish it off, most of it off camera. So the first thing that we're going to do basically is take the get some water as well, and just put it on the wrong bench. There we are, there's water. So take the green, dark green, and what I probably will do as well actually is get some brown, or mix some brown in as well. But first of all, we're just going to do a base coat of this darker green over all of it. I'm going to need more of dark green. That teach me for trying to be smart and not put too much out. The problem is you always end up with too much. You always end up throwing some of this away. So yeah, put a base of dark green in, and then kind of mix in some blue and some lighter green to get some smears, and then finally we come over the top with the lightest green, and that's how we get our movement. And it's a very kind of dynamic process, and there's no real rules, I make it up as I go along, but this is roughly what I end up doing, and I get normally quite a nice mixed fast running stream, which is what I'm aiming for here. Very, very quickly. You can see I'm almost finished already. So I'll do it all on camera because it's so quick. But you can also see that I've definitely got too much paint on my palette. It's very hard to judge the correct amount of paint for this technique, which is always a struggle. So it always causes a bit of waste, which I don't like, but I do like how it looks. So there we are, that's the river in, and I'll come along, once that's dried, let that dry, I'll come along and use some varnish on the top, just to seal it. Now you can use either varnish, or you can use PVA. I'm going to use varnish, yacht varnish. There we are, perfect. So that looks like a fast moving stream, done, took a few minutes, that's all. I'll let that dry. I'm going to clamp this down to a shelf as well, a bit of wood now, just so that I don't, so it doesn't warp. Most of this will be cut off obviously, but I'm going to clamp this down as well. So the next time you see this, this will be varnished with yacht varnish, and we'll be moving on to the next step. Well, the spray went well, as you can see. It's got a nice rich colour to it. Of course, there's going to be books on all these shelves, so it's not hugely important, but I did want to get it a nice clean finish and a uniform colour. What I need to do now is, before I start work on those books, and I have made some progress towards plans, which I'll come to when they come to fruition. The next thing I need to do is the floor, because the flooring needs to be done before I can glue the sides on, before I can then set the books in place. And the first thing that I need to do before I could do the floor is the fireplace. Of course, I'm going to need to have some kind of a grate or something like that, at the very least, going across in front of this. So I'm going to be needing to make myself a fire grate here. I'm probably going to have it quite shallow, just come forwards a little bit, come across, and I might have some pokers and what have you there. So well, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to spend a little bit of time drawing on here, working out where I want things to go, how I want it to look, and then I will do the grate. And once I've done that, then I'll do the rest of the floor, which, as I say, I'm actually still considering how I'm going to do it. Haven't finally confirmed in my head. My thoughts are tongue depressors or cardboard or foam, or even a roller that I've got, and yeah, I'm umming and ahhing between all of these options, so I will come up with something, or I'll decide and then I'll do it. But the first thing I need to do before I do anything, because I need to do this, and then I can get the fire done, get the fire painted in here and the base built up, and then I can do the rest of the floor. So yeah, coming on nicely. I'm pretty pleased with the colour that these all came out with as well. I think it looks really nice. This is what I've ended up with. Some of the same polystyrene. I've cut it to shape. I've not glued it in place just yet. But what I am going to do is I'm going to glue it to the base, which will allow me to put the floor around it. Yeah, that will still look pretty good. I think that'll be perfect. So I've very carefully put it in place, just to make sure it's going to look okay. What I'll do now is I have my Superfix Extreme here, the Extreme Power, and what we'll do is we will put a couple of beads of that on the bottom. So I want this to be relatively secure, like that, and then I'll offer it up and press it in and weight it down, and then when I come to actually glue the wall in, I can then glue the wall here and the chimney breast to this base, and that will look good. So there we are, we have our first thing on the base of the of this display. So excellent. So now I really do need to come up with my final idea of how I'm going to do the flooring, so I better get my thinking hat on. So I have decided I'll just go for it. I'm going to go for the crazy thing. I'm going to cover the whole of this with tongue depressors and then use my wood stain to stain it up and make it look nice. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use my sharp knife, these good scissors, really strong scissors. I've cut one, it cuts quite quickly, so I'm just going to sit down, watch some YouTube, chill out, and probably I'll end up using 100. I've got, this is a brand new pack that I've just opened. I pulled some out. I'll probably use at least 100, if not more. So I'm going to cut a load up, and when I get bored cutting, then what I'll do is I'll glue it down, weight them down so they don't warp. And getting glue, I'll just use a very thin smear of wood glue to glue them down, and eventually I'll cover the whole of the base. And yeah, it's going to take me some time. This seems to be a project for massive scope and huge amounts of repetitive tasks. So yeah, I'm just going to start, sit and cut and cut and cut and cut, and then when I come to glue, I'll turn the camera back on and show you how I do that. But this will probably take me a few days, so I'm just going to work my way through it slowly but surely. I think it will look the best. I do think it's going to be the nicest result, rather than using a different material. Because if you want something to look like wood, use wood. This might be quicker than I thought. I've cut all of those in 10 minutes. So I'm going to start gluing them down. And I thought I'd show how I'm going to do that. So I've got PVA. I'm not going to put much PVA on. You really don't ever need much PVA. And more PVA will just cause it to warp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that PVA, I'm going to glue that down with PVA there, and I'm going to get myself a clamp first of all for this first one, because I want to make sure that it doesn't move, because the rest are all going to be keyed off this first one. This is the most important one. I'll drop something on the floor. The most important one to get right. So yeah, I'm going to clamp it in place. So move it a bit further back, slide the whole thing forwards, and I can get a clamp at both ends like that. Okay, so that now is absolutely securely held in place. So what I can do is I can come along and apply I'll say just a thin skim of PVA to the rest of these pieces, making sure that I keep them nice and straight. This is where I find that my cuts aren't all that straight. But for this, I can basically use clamps for this first row, like I say. I won't be able to use clamps for the rest because I won't be able to get in, but I will for this. And this will give a nice edge that I can then butt the rest up. So what I'll do is I'll finish this row and then show you what the next step is. Well, I've got the first run done, and I'm umming and ahhing about the arrangement of how I want to actually tile these. I could do it in thirds, which is what you see here, or I could do it in halves, which would mean that every other one would be butted up smooth. Initially I was going to do in halves, but I'm looking at it and wondering if thirds would look better. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of a pause, work that out, and then I'll come back and show you how, I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. But the key here is what I'm going to be doing is only working on half of the board. So I've put these, the bottom ones across so that I've got an edge, and I'm going to build my way along this edge, and then along the middle, and then along the far end. And that's going to mean that I'll be able to use these weights to hold down the middles, and I will be able to clamp every time one gets close to the edge. I'll put one of these clamps on to hold it in place, and it should work quite nicely. So yeah, not sure, thirds, halves. Halves is easier. I think thirds might look nicer, so knowing me, I will go with what looks nicer because it's you know, there's no point in cutting corners on this stuff. So I'll probably go in thirds and just glue them down again, just a thin sheen of PVA, clamp anything I can along the edge and use the weights to hold down the rest of it. But I'm not going to go past this on this run. I'll get this done and then I'll tile in these and then tile in these, and then the whole thing will be finished. The only other thing I need to be aware of is where the doorway is, and the fact that I am going to need to leave a little cutout for the door supports, so I'll probably want to draw those on as well, and I'll get that done, and then I'll just make sure that I avoid those areas, snip the floorboards a little bit around them. But yeah, pretty pleased with this as an idea. As I say, it's going to be a little bit more complex or a little bit slower than just slapping down some foam and carving it, but I think it's going to look much nicer. So this is going quite well. I thought I'd shoot a quick clip now just showing the stage. It's taken 3 separate gluing stages to get to here. You can see that I've done the clamps down the sides, have worked really well, and I've made use of weights and my flat weight things, the joining strips, just to make sure that everything stays stuck. Now the purpose of this clip is to show the pattern that I've gone for. And I have gone for the thirds, just so I think it looked quite a little bit nicer. So this section here is 4.5 centimetres because the whole of a long one is about 14.5. So 4.5 is the 13.5 centimetres. So 4.5 centimetres, 45 mil. So what I'm doing, basically what I've done is I've taken a whole one of these, marked out for 45 mil, cut it, and that means that that one splits over 2 rows and does the thirds, and I think that looks really nice. So now that I've done all of the one side, apart from the top, because unfortunately there's a slither there which is going to be a bit of a pain, but I'll deal with that. What I can do now is come along, and you can see they slot in really nicely. So I'm going to be able to come along now and do the rest of these. I say they slot in nicely, and then I come across one that's a bit skew-if, but they should slot in really nicely like this. Some of them are going to be a bit wonky on the cut, so I should be able to resolve that by rotating. But yeah, so what I'll do now is I'll come along and I'll glue all the rest of it in the same way, and that was the hard part until I get to the end, and then it'll be a case of measuring at this end, measuring and cutting to size. Of course, the way that I could do it without measuring and cutting is just glue them hanging over and then come along with the Dremel and slice down the side, which is another option. I might do that, and if I do, I'll bring you along. But I'm just going to crack on. It's not going to be a quick process, like I've said. I've got quite a few more. I've only got a couple left that I initially cut. So that was the first batch. It took me 10 minutes just to snip. So I'm going to have to do a load more snipping out of this box here, and then just glue them down as I go. When it's done, it's done, and I'll bring you along when I've finished. So yeah, just patience and a little bit at a time. As expected, this is glued together superbly well, and I don't actually even need to do any filling. Very, very, very impressed with how that's gone together. So what I'm going to do now is prime and paint it. I'm going to use contrast paints on this, paint it quite quickly because I think it will look good with contrast paints, and then I'm going to have a lot of fun doing the base. Now I've been umming and ahhing about that, as I often do, and I haven't yet decided what I'm going to do. So yeah, I'm just going to paint now and then worry about the base once I've finished painting. I've got a couple of options, a couple of good ideas. Nothing that's really jumped at me and said this is what you must do yet. But anyway, nice print, assembles really well. Let's get it painted. Shaky cam time, and here is the Games Workshop model of Goldur ruins that I put together. But I've got some issues. Look at the size of that gap. There's a really bad gap all the way around between the ground floor and the first floor, which is not ideal. And I'm going to need to resolve that. I'm going to need to fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple of different methods, not just the one. I'm going to do a few to show some ideas of how to fix that issue. It needs fixing. It really isn't going to be supportable. So yeah, let's see how we can go about doing this. Once I've resolved that, what I'll do then is base and paint it. But first of all, we need to fix that. So I will get my materials together and show you how I'm going to make that not look terrible anymore. First up, what we're going to do with this is some green stuff. So this is what green stuff looks like if you've not seen it before. Oh, I'm sure you have, but yeah. You have the two parts, blue and yellow. And what we do is you cut about an equal amount of each off, like so, and then get some water, and the water helps to mix it. And what you're looking at doing is combining the two colours to turn it green, which I will now do. It can be a bit difficult, particularly if you've got old green stuff like I have, but it does ultimately combine, and like I say, I find that adding the water helps. So I'll get that smudged together, and when I've done that I will show what it looks like. So might run some music just to entertain you while I'm doing this. You can see it's starting to combine. Let's get this done. So it didn't take too long. It's not the easiest thing in the world with old green stuff, but it's not so bad. So what we'll then do is I will then take a bit, roll it into a sausage and put it into place. So, oh, caught that. How about that for reflexes? So yeah, just roll it into a sausage, and again, a little bit of water just to keep it from sticking to yourself and to lubricate it is a good idea. So I'll get that done. There we are. So we've got ourselves a thin section. And what we'll now do, try and do this on camera, if I can. So you can see we've got a gap there. What we'll be able to do, actually let's do this. Let's do these slightly easier. Let's do that one there. What we'll do is we'll slot it in place. Try to get it all in the gap and not covering up any of the details. You can use your knife or a sculpting tool to push this into place and to clear it off where you don't want it. But that's pretty much all there is
to green stuff. So I will use the rest of the green stuff I've mixed up and fill in the rest of that little gap, and then we'll have a look and see how milliput differs.
Now I know you like delivery day almost as much as I do, and we've had another delivery day today, so yeah, I've got a couple of things to show you. This I'm bundling together because it kind of is all kind of related. I've been listening to a lot of what they call the SOGcast, which is John Stryker Meyer on Jocko Wilkes's YouTube channel, and it's all about the secret war in Vietnam. So because of that, because I have been listening to so much of it and really fascinating and incredible, I've picked up 3 books by John Stryker Meyer, which I'm going to really enjoy reading, and then I've also picked up from a German shop, as you can see. Not sure what that says, unfortunately. It's all in German, and unfortunately I don't read German. But this is the basically the helicopter that they rode in to battle. This is what they were actually were dropped off from, and so I thought I might try and do myself a little bit of a diorama at some point, based on the story. A story when I read these, I'll find one I like, and then I can maybe do a diorama. So that's the plan. So yeah, so I picked that up, and I have one other thing to show. So I'll just get that unwrapped. It's got a little bit of tape on it, and we'll have a look at it. Right, so we have some more stuff from Mindwork Games, because, well, I do love their stuff. Actually was so close to starting a Mindwork Games build this week, and then I just didn't because I've got enough projects on the go at now, so I held off. So this is another limited edition that they did. It doesn't actually say what it's called, but we'll have a quick look at it. As always, comes in some fantastic packing, and this is a big one. So there's the base, and here is a lion. Look at that. Look at the detail on that lion head. Isn't that fantastic? So I'm not going to go and unpack it all because it's going to be a while before I make it. I will try and remember to put a picture on the screen of what that actually is, and also I'm not sure if they're still selling it. Quite a lot of these things sell out quite fast. I've actually got one more thing from Mindwork Games on its way, which is one I'm very excited about. It's a Middle-earth based one. But yeah, you can see it's limited edition, 97 of 600. As I said, I'm not sure whether they've sold out or not, but I'll try to remember to get a picture and put it on the screen of what actually the sculpt is of. But yeah, that's going to go on the shelf. I'm very close to starting one of these, so I promise it will be in the next couple of weeks that I begin a Mindwork Games diorama, and you'll actually get to see one of these put together. I know I've got a lot, so I really need to start digging into that pile. Next up is a very similar thing. We're going to make use of milliput to fill in the gap just along here and around there. And this works in very much the same way as the green stuff, in that you've got a 2-part epoxy that you're going to mix. So we're going to take a chunk of the one and a chunk of the other, mix it together, again using some water just to help with that process, and then roll it into little kind of sausages and put it into the gaps. So yeah, it pretty much works the same way. Water is much more useful for this than green stuff.
and it's a much easier process to mix than the green stuff. So I'm not entirely sure how much that is because my green stuff really is years old. I received a huge quantity of green stuff for free in a purchase. It was in the box. I don't even know if they knew they'd give it me. I bought a load of models off of eBay, and when I opened it I had a bunch of tufts and a load of green stuff. Either they were getting out of the hobby entirely and just thought they'd gift it me, I can't remember. But anyway, yes, I've got loads and I still haven't used up that. So yeah, so we're going to mix it together until it is all one colour. And then, in the same way, take a chunk. Let's just get my paper towel so I'm not dripping everywhere. Take a chunk, roll it into a sausage, and then slosh it into place. So yeah, it's pretty similar technique. Now I actually find green stuff to be a bit cleaner to work with than the Milliput. Milliput always leaves quite a lot of this kind of like stuff on my hands, which I don't really like. But yeah, so we'll just get this in briefly now, and then I'll do the rest of it off camera because it's basically the same. So you can just, it's a little easier, I think, to put in place, but I also think it's a little more messy to work with. So there's a pro and a con there. So yeah, that's going to fill that gap nicely. These are two pretty obvious solutions to this problem. So my next one will be a little bit more kind of, if you haven't got Milliput, if you haven't got green stuff, but you still have a problem like this and you don't have to spend lots of money, I'm going to show you a different option. So I'll get the rest of this Milliput squashed in there, and then I'll come back for my third and final idea. Well then, I've managed to get the river done. That's looking really nice. I just did a coat of the varnish, as I said. And I've just been umming and ahhing about 3 different options I've got of what to do next, and I have decided. So the first option was to do the riverbanks, which is a bit of sand, a bit of gravel, a bit of paint, a bit of glue. Second option is to stick this down before doing that. And then the third option, which is what I realise I need to do, is to put my drips and water onto the water wheel. So I'm going to make use of clear silicone, and what I'm going to need to do is put a bit of clear silicone onto each of the, or where I want it to be dripping down. Then once that's done and on there, I will get some alcohol and a toothpick, and I will basically tease and move it into place so that it looks like it's dripping. So this is a bit kind of blocked at the moment, so I'm just trying not to clear it out. So I'll just clear the end of this. It's dried in place, unfortunately, so I need to clear the end out. So I'll get that done, and then I'll come back and record and show you how I'm going to do it when I've done that. Sorry. Well, I've managed that. That was pretty difficult. I've not managed to get all of the blockage out, but I've got enough out. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to run a bead along the edge of this cross piece here, which is the one that's going to be probably have the most water dripping off of it. So just get a bead like that, and then toothpick. Let me zoom that in a little bit. There we are, that's better. Toothpick, and I have a little pot here with some 100% alcohol in it, which I use for this purpose. Now what you can do is, like this, you can kind of tease it nicely into shape. And you don't actually need to worry too much, because water in this case is actually quite chaotic. So you can't really do it wrong in one sense. You can probably put too much on, but yeah, just go a bit wild really, because what this is doing is mimicking the fact that this is definitely a water wheel that definitely has an interaction with water. And once I've glued it in place, I'll probably do a little more of this and fill in a little more of the activity of the water going on. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. So I'll let that dry, and maybe add a bit more after I've dried it off, after it's a bit dry. but I think I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. It's a really cool little technique.
And it looks great, I think you agree. So I'll let that go off, and then what we'll do next is glue this down in place, and then I'm going to do all the sand. So I'll bring you along when I come to that.
Oh, my little water effects have dried very nicely. I'm very pleased with them. Put them on both sides of the wheel, obviously. So what I'm now going to do, excuse me, reaching across, is make use of the Extreme Fix. And I've got, yes, I have a metal applicator now, which is much better than the plastic one, and we're just going to put a bead of this, because again it's just holding it in place, it's not worrying if there's a gap or whatever. Put a bead of this around. God, that applicator is so much better. And then push that in place. However, this applicator is so much better, but I need to remember to actually release it, because yeah, unlike the plastic one, when you don't release it, it still puts pressure on. So yeah, so we'll just place that in. I've got my mark here where I want to have it to go, because I drew it, so I can drop that down in place and carefully push it down to get a good solid bond, and I'll let that go off, and I'll bring you back for the next step, which is going to be starting to do the texturing, the finishing off. We're pretty close to this now. I'm really happy with it, really happy with how this is looking. Well, that took some time, but there it is. We have a wooden floor. I'm pretty happy with it, actually. It's not perfect. There's some issues in the middle. I had to do a little bit of kind of like cutting to make everything fit. But yeah, I think it looks really nice. And I particularly think it'll look nice after the next step, which is using wood stain. This is mahogany colour. I've just given it a very good shake, so hopefully it's nicely shaken up. Yep, there we are. So using wood stain, and I'm going to paint wood stain all over the wood, because it's wood and I want to stain it. So yeah, I'll show you how this goes on. Just use an old brush. This is going to need to be cleaned in spirits, in white spirits. But you're going to need to do a couple of coats of this. That's just how it is, to get a nice deep colour if you want a deep colour. But we're basically going to be painting this on over the whole thing, and then once it's painted on, we'll come along and do a little bit of weathering probably. But there is going to be quite a lot going on over the top of the, so it's not just going to be a bare wooden floor. And actually I'm going to get a bigger brush, because that's going to take me about a year if I do it like that. So get an old brush that's bigger out of my pot. And yeah, we're just going to paint this on all over. Let that dry, do a second coat, let that dry. And the benefit of this is it looks like mahogany now rather than looking like pine, which obviously is a better floor for a library, but also it's going to keep it like a little bit more hard wearing, protect it, what have you. So yeah, there we are. I'll get that done, bring you back when that's finished, and I'll come to the next step. Oh, I think that looks really nice. I'm very pleased with it. So, and you can see it really does fit well with the furniture. So the next thing to do, move these out of the way, and what I'm going to do now is paint up some of the other bits and pieces that I need to do. So the hearth is going to be done like with red, with a brick red, I think, and so is the rest of the hearth that is on this piece here. But what I'm first going to do is I'm going to paint the wood that's behind, that's not really in shot. There's a blank wood here which I didn't tile, and the hearth, and the interior of this with black. So I've just got to house paint black, and yeah, just going to simply come along and whack black on it. Now eventually I may very well put a picture of a fireplace in there, or do something else a little bit smarter, but for now just painting black is going to be perfectly sufficient for what I want. So I'm going to get that done and then let that dry, and then I can actually glue the walls on. I can stick the walls on, which is pretty exciting really when you think about it. And I have also started the process of looking at oh dear, don't put black paint on me, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, be careful. Put black paint on the floor. I've started the process of looking at books and working out how I'm going to do it. So I will show you that the first idea now, but there are so many books I need to do that is now going to take me literally weeks, I think, to get the books all populated and what have you. So there's going to be quite a pause now while I do that. But anyway, there we are. Get this all painted up. I'll bring you up when it's done, and when I'm about to stick the walls on, and that'll be a really big moment. Very, very cool to have reached this point. For quite a long time there, I worried that I never would. Right then, let's get this stuck on. So, I've got my Moment Extreme Fix, of course. What else? And what I'm going to do is put a little bit at the back behind each of these, behind the kind of return of the fireplace, because it's going to butt in there. And then I'm going to run a bead along the bottom here. Now, some of this isn't going to be filmable because I'm going to be getting like weights and what have you. So what I'll do is, once I've got this all set in place, because it needs to be done 90 degrees obviously, otherwise it's not going to work very well, so I need to wedge it and hold it in place. But once I've got that all set up, I will come back and show you how it looks. But basically this is what we're going to do. I'm going to push in, we're going to set it in like that, run it in, hopefully not too much pokes up out like that, we don't want that to happen. Just get rid of whatever squirts up, because I mean I can come in with a little touch of black paint on that and touch it up later. But that is aligned at the front, aligned at the back there, and aligned in the middle there. There we are. Good. So that's going to work really well. So I'm going to let that dry, and I probably will, as I said, put some weights against it just to hold it up straight. But I'll let that dry before I do anything else. And then what I will do is I'll put the back on, and then what I'll do is I'll put the other side on. So I'm just going to do it very, very steadily to make sure it's done right. Because yeah, this is the big thing. Very exciting to see it get to this stage. As I said in the last clip, there was a period of time there that I thought this project was just going to die on the vine and go back on the box, and well, you can see I've managed to get it going. Well, there we are. I've put a couple of 90 degrees, you can see, just so I can keep it wedged in. It's not perfectly straight, it's leaning over a bit, but when I put the back on, that will get bent back and into alignment, so I'm pretty happy. It's more about making sure that it's actually really, really tight up against the bottom. That's more than what I'm concerned about. So, like I say, I'll leave that to go off and bring you back for the next step shortly. Alright, so time for the next and final and cheapskate-ish way of saving gaps. Now, I've accidentally filled way too much with the Milliput, because one of the issues I have with Milliput is I always mix up too much, and I'm tight, so I don't like throwing it away. So anyway, so what I've got here is I've got my terrain glue, and in this big bucket here you can see unsifted sand. It literally is sand I've pulled out of a builder's sand delivery, doing a massive renovation here, so I've always got lots and lots of builder's sand around, and I use a lot of it for my hobbying. So what I'm going to do is come along, and where there's a gap that I want to fill, I'm going to put some glue in, like so. This really is very obvious when you think about it. And actually I need to move that camera a little bit, so I'll move the angle of the, there we are. So there's my little bit of glue. And what I'll do then is put some sand on it. There we are. And it's as quick as that. Empty that back in, and what you've got is no gap. There we are. Oh dear, put it too close. No gap. There we are. So if I zoom that in, you can see that there is going to be no gap there, particularly after we've painted it. That's going to look really, really nice. And if I rotate that now to the other side, what I'll do, I'll quickly just do that off camera and then show you what it looks like. So I'm going to need to lift it up a little bit. This one you're going to need to have on its side because you want to drop the glue into the gap and then drop the sand on top of it. So I'll just quickly get that done and show you what that looks like. So there we are, you can see that there really is no gap there now. And honestly, I think I prefer this method. As I said, I just mixed up too much of the putty for filling. I didn't have anything else handy to fill and use it. And I think this is a better solution, particularly for buildings, because it just is more realistic. You get a bit of rubble around gaps and joints and what have you, so I think it looks really good. So yeah, that's it. So I'm going to do the rest of the building like this, fill in all the gaps. I hope that's been useful. I hope that that's inspirational if you're making these models and find out that you do a bad job like I did. Don't worry, you can always save things, and I really hope that does help you. So yeah, so I'll come back when I've finished, show you what it all looks like, completely filled, and then yeah, the next thing we'll be painting it, which will be a whole other thing.
All right, another week, and not that great progress, sadly. I don't think they're dead. They're still green. Normally I'm quite good at growing things. But yeah, they're not flourishing, particularly this one still. And this one, it's in there. It's early morning and the sun streams in through this window in the morning. So the largest one is still the largest one, and it's still, yeah, I mean, it's definitely the one doing the best, but it's still not doing great, and its little companion definitely isn't looking very healthy. And finally, over here we have a couple, but again they're very tiny, so it's not going all that well. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. Going to need to find out, maybe I'm watering too much or too little. That's normally the thing. They definitely get enough light because they get lots of light from this window. But yeah, a bit disappointing that it's not looking superb yet and flourishing, but onwards and upwards, hopefully. Alright, the books. So, as I've said, I'm going to do a couple of ideas of how to populate a library with books, and I have a lot of shelf space to fill and I want to fill it. So yeah, this is going to be an ongoing project, probably takes a while, but the first idea is probably the most obvious if you have a 3D printer, is to 3D print. Now these are free files. I will pop a link in the description below if I remember to. If I don't, leave me a comment and I will do so. They're free files from my mini factory, and they're brilliant. As you can see, they're printed out really well. We have a stack of scrolls, which is pretty cool, and some of them have like skulls and what have you, which is pretty cool. And there's even an open book, which will go somewhere in the room. And then there's also, I found a file of a bunch of individual books, so you could just put a stack of those and then really arrange them however you want. So this is clearly the easiest, because you find a file, you put it in your printer, you hit print, you go away, you come back, and there they are. But I'm not going to just use these, so I'll probably print some more. I'll probably use a fair few 3D printed books. As I say, I have so much shelf space to fill, but this is not the only idea I've got, but the first one. So there we are. Really cool. There's loads. If you want to spend money, if you want to buy some, there's some really nice ones in there as well. Not massively expensive to buy the files. I just went for the free ones because I find that more helpful to share with you guys. But yeah, there's lots and lots of things like this on my mini factory or Thingiverse, and you can print them out. So that's idea one. Shortly, once I've perfected it, I will show you idea two. Well, there we are. That was the week. As I said, just a week of trying to do a little bit regularly. Some quite repetitive tasks there, particularly making that floor, which I was able to slot in brief moments during work. But not a week of feeling like I'm really going for it. But that's cool. You know, you have your ups, you have your downs. You just keep going. And I hope that that's interesting and informative and inspiring. So please let me know in the comments below what you think. I love to read them. I do reply to every single one of them. So don't be shy. Do say hello. And if you managed to make it this far, thank you very much for watching. It's really appreciated. As always, thoughts go out to anyone who is directly or indirectly impacted by the war in Ukraine right now. I'm really thinking of you all. I'm sending out my best wishes to everyone there. It's just horrendous. And I'll wrap up by saying, as I always do, please stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.